Welcome to everyone here in person to our open house, our spring open house for admitted students. Also, welcome to everyone that is on Zoom, zooming in from all over the world. Before I get started with the formal part of our presentation this morning, I thought since we're a small group here in person and also on Zoom, we could do in person a very quick round of introductions so we can get to know each other, maybe starting with Daniel in the back.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniel Leitinger and I teach the course Design for Physical Interaction together with Marcelo Coelho, and I'm one of the Design Innovation Fellows of the program. So excited to meet you all.
Hi everyone, my name is Melcy, a current student from Design Tech Department. My background is in architecture and I'm so excited to be part of this program. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, my name is Manini. I'm a prospective student. Design Tech program, the studio track. I did my undergraduate at RISD in industrial design. Super excited to be here and to meet all of you.
Hi everyone, my name is Kobe. I come from a background of evolutionary biology and I'm a current design tech student, thesis track, and I'm excited to meet and see everybody today.
Hi everyone, my name is Swar. I'm also from an industrial design background. I did my bachelor's at SAIC and I'm also very excited to be here and prospective student of the professional track.
Good morning, Rebecca Givens. I'm the department manager, 5 months new. Really excited to be here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Laura Gonzalez. I am a visiting lecturer here in the Department of Design Technology.
Good morning also from my side. I am Marirena Claveftira. I'm a Design Tech Innovation Fellow like Daniel. I also teach studio here and I'm teaching an elective on human-robot collaboration. So my background is in architecture and digital fabrication.
Hi everyone, my name is Art. I am the program coordinator of the Department of Design Tech. I'm very excited to get to know you all. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Chang, and I'm an assistant professor here in the Design Tech department. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about my research, but currently I'm teaching an elective called Biomimetics and Design.
Hi, I'm Adam Burke. I'm a visiting lecturer in Design Tech, and I'm teaching coding for design and also a couple of AI and design seminars.
So welcome everyone. We have a really exciting day planned for everyone that's here in person. We have our formal presentation this morning. At 11:30, I will be taking you on a tour of our amazing facilities here at AAP. And then we have a lunch planned at 1 p.m., followed by a tour by some of our current graduate students. They'll take you out into the university to see some other amazing spaces and buildings here. And then we'll round out the day with a very exciting opening in the Bibliowix Gallery, which is just around the corner, which is our inaugural Open Studio exhibition for Design Tech, which was just finished, I think, late last night by our amazing faculty, Tiffany, Laura, Lawson, and also Mercy as our student involved with the exhibition, and many, many others contributing to it. So it'll be a really great celebration. So as many of you know, Design Tech is a relatively new multi-college department. We straddle 5 colleges. AAP is the administrating college. And the department is in collaboration with Cornell Tech in New York City, which is also our partner in the MS and Design Technology program, human ecology, computing and information science, as well as engineering. This is who we are at a glance. We have 7 inaugural faculty. We welcomed our inaugural tenure track faculty member, Tiffany Chang, last year. We have 3 amazing visiting lecturers this year, 4 Design Tech Innovation Fellows, who you met a couple of them just a moment ago, 23 graduate students and 1 program currently, but we also are planning to launch a PhD in the fall of 27. And we're also excited about generating pathways between our MS and the PhD. So a little bit about myself. I'm Jenny Sabin. As you know, I'm a professor in design tech as well as in architecture and the chair of the department. In my lab, I engage in bio-inspired design processes across disciplinary boundaries. I collaborate with biologists, physicists, such as Itai, my colleague and friend in the corner here, mathematicians and beyond, and we're really interested in turning to nature to extract design drivers to then rethink our approach to sustainability in material systems and architecture. And we engage in the development of new material systems, digital fabrication protocols across scales and across disciplines, and intersect with 2 of our hubs that compose design tech, which I'll come back to in just a moment, including Design Plus Environments and Design Plus Materials. I also run a practice, which is separate from my lab here at Cornell, where we're able to apply some of the fundamental principles and material concepts into built work that engages diverse communities. This was a project ADA in collaboration with Microsoft Research that explores the potential of integrating AI technologies to design with data streams that we otherwise haven't been able to design with before. And my expertise in architecture is really in responsive and adaptive lightweight tensile membrane structures, and this was our project for MoMA and MoMA PS1 as part of the Young Architects program. But enough about me. At the end of the day, I'm an educator first and foremost. I am deeply thankful for the students that I get to engage with, the collaborators that I am able to work with, am inspired by, where every day is different and creative, and students are very much at the center of that. So a little bit about the context that you're in. Cornell here in Ithaca is situated at the southern end of Lake Cayuga. So we are here in the Finger Lakes region. So if you enjoy hiking, swimming, biking, wine tasting, farm-to-table restaurants, this is a really pretty special and beautiful area. And this is a view near the clock tower looking north towards Lake Cayuga. Design Tech has 2 footprints. We are here in Ithaca, and at the end of my presentation, I'll talk a little bit about our exciting huge adaptive reuse project, which will be the new home for Design Tech here. But we also have a strong presence at Cornell Tech in New York City. We just visited Cornell Tech last Friday with our first class of MS students, had an amazing couple of days interacting with faculty and students there. And we're just about to open a brand new space where Design Tech, alongside all of our programs in architecture as well as planning, will be centrally housed on the 4th floor of the Tata Innovation Center, which is a beautiful building by Weissman Freddy on the Cornell Tech campus. So it's a super exciting moment for the program and also for AAP and our collaborating colleges in terms of our engagement with Cornell Tech. So why Design Tech? In many ways, design and technology have never been more important. And in Design Tech, we really believe that human creativity has the power to be transformative. And certainly the challenges of our time demand that design and technology integrate to cultivate new models for how we teach, how we engage in research, how we engage with industry and practice, and importantly, to develop highly creative applications to comprehend the key social, environmental, and technological issues that we face. And this spans scales, it spans disciplines, And these are just a couple of examples that touch upon some of these concepts and issues that were recently featured in the Cornell Chronicle, where, quote, "If deep space exploration is to become a reality, humans will need to be as self-sufficient as possible. Since ordering supplies from Earth won't be practical, the astronauts will have to fabricate their own components for equipment and other products through additive manufacturing, or what we know as 3D printing," end quote. And those challenges may become overcome thanks to modeling software created in the lab of Derek Warner at Cornell, and also at radically different scales. We see here in the work of the Lawrence Lab, incorporating 3D printing for tissue engineering and 3D printing ears that look and act real, which gives hope for children born with congenital deformities. And technology is also gaining research prominence. As some of you know, there is a relatively new directorate at the National Science Foundation, which is called TIP, or Technology Innovations and Partnerships, which is really focused on applications of technology for societal impact. And because of that, design actually plays a really pivotal role in those applications. And recently, design tech faculty, including myself as PI, Itai Cohen as co-PI, and other collaborators, we were successful in securing one of these grants to explore HelioSkin, which is a bio-inspired mechanically tracking solar collection skin. And if you're curious to learn a little bit more about this project, we have some of the first-year findings on display in the exhibition, which will open this evening. So in many ways, we are in what some historians call the midst of the fourth industrial revolution, which has the biggest impact on design in many cases since the medieval period. And it's really that these new intersections between the digital, the physical, and the biological that are radically altering the world from the nano to the macro scales. And we think that Cornell is really poised to be at the forefront in addressing these challenges and questions. And the MS in Design Technology program is a leader and innovator in collaborative teaching, as well as research across disciplines. And our faculty are engaged in cutting-edge research. This is some of the research by inaugural faculty member Timur Dogan and Itai Cohen. We'll hear from Itai in a moment on his work that's ongoing, as well as with biologists and engineers to extract key design drivers from biological systems towards new approaches for adaptive and responsive architecture. And we teach collaboratively across disciplines, and that is demonstrated in the foundation studio in the first year, which is called Design and Making Across Disciplines. We piloted this studio for 4 years, together with students at Cornell Tech and our students, as well as faculty at Cornell Tech and here, to then give rise to what is the foundational studio that you will take in the first fall semester and spring semester. Importantly, and very much related to this, Cornell is an R1 university, meaning that research activity is very high here. And there are lots of opportunities to get involved with fundamental research, either with design tech faculty or perhaps if you're in the thesis track with your minor members on your committees. And connected to this research, Design Tech is organized through 3 broad hubs as part of the groundwork that the faculty task force developed and worked on leading up to the new department. We had a long list of what we saw as priorities and also, importantly, gaps that we wanted to build upon, as well as highlighting the core expertise of Cornell, what Cornell is really good at across disciplines. And that includes design plus materials, design plus interactions, and design plus environments. And of course, within these hubs, there are themes and topics, including bio-informed design and 3D printing, opportunities to engage in digital and robotic fabrication, which you heard just a little bit about a moment ago. And again, opportunities to collaborate and work for many of the exciting labs that are present not just here in AAP, but also across our participating colleges. As I mentioned, the College of Architecture, Art, and Planning, which also now includes Design Tech and the Department of Real Estate, is the administrating college for the department. I'm the chair of the department, and Dean Mi-Jin Yoon is the administrating dean, working closely with the participating deans in our collaborating colleges. We also host a number of different activities. We have a really dynamic and active lecture series. We just hosted Skylar Tibbetts a couple of weeks ago from the Self-Assembly Lab at MIT. We also host exhibitions, and you'll see one this evening opening at 5:30. As well as public events with Cornell Tech. This is a photograph taken during what's called Open Studio. This is a really amazing event that happens at the end of every semester where Cornell Tech opens its doors to around 600 people in the New York City region, people in industry, practice, research, and essentially they're super excited to come and see what you are up to. And it's also an amazing networking event. We've had students land jobs just within the few hours of this event. As a student at Design Tech, you will of course have access to our incredible facilities. You are sitting here now, and for those of you on Zoom, you will hopefully soon be able to experience this in person. Later this morning, you'll be able to see our new library. This is the Mui Ho Fine Arts Library, which is in Rand Hall, our latest capital improvement project, which also allowed us to renovate our fabrication facilities. This is our robotics suite in the fabrication and making space, which we'll also tour in person. Our inaugural faculty, who I like to call the Super Seven, were also part of the faculty task force, which was about 18 people, all representing our 5 participating colleges. Wendy Ju is the co-director of the MS program. She has been my partner in crime from the very beginning in terms of realizing this dream together with many other faculty. And you'll have a chance to meet Wendy at Cornell Tech if you are able to visit. Wendy's in information science. And we have grown. As I mentioned, Tiffany joined us last year. We also have an amazing array of visiting faculty and Design Tech Innovation Fellows. The Design Tech Innovation Fellow position is a new position that Dean Mi-Jin Yoon and I developed to bring in junior and senior amazing colleagues to come and teach and engage in research with us for 1 to 2 years, to publish their findings and to exhibit their research in exhibitions such as the one opening this evening. We're also hiring, so we're building the culture of the department. It's not often that you get to be a part of a brand new department and beyond that, a really unique department that is fundamentally about breaking down disciplinary silos and collaborating across disciplines. And so we're building our faculty. We currently are about to complete really exciting searches in 2 areas. We have a collaborative search between Design Tech and engineering in 2 areas of concentration. One is with mechanical and aerospace engineering, and that broadly has a focus on cyber-physical systems and robotics. And the other is with material science and engineering in the areas of biodesign. The other joint search is with Cornell Tech that Wendy Ju and Francois Guimetier are leading, and that's focused on interaction design and engagement. So now I'm going to shift into talking a bit more in detail about our program, our 2-year Master of Science in Design Technology. As I mentioned, in the first year, you will take foundational courses, including studio, design and making across disciplines. And the studio is organized during the first half of the semester through a series of modules. And this year, the modules kicked off with bio-inspired and generative design, where students learned not only about the potential of turning to nature for a set of design drivers, but importantly, to think through a design process that's relational and systemic, right? And frequently bottom up. So very process-based. The second module focused on materials by design, so looking at responsive and adaptive materials, and I'll come to this module in just a moment. And that was led by Uli Weissner, who's also part of our inaugural faculty, and he's in materials science, does amazing work that cuts across disciplines. And so in that module, students were learning about the differences between responsive versus adaptive materials, and how to begin to integrate material constraints into their thinking and design processes. And the third module, which very much connected to the first, was focused on morphogenesis, so looking at robustness and changes in growth and form in biological systems, and that was led by Jonathan Butcher, who's been teaching in the studio since the very beginning of the pilot phase of this. And so in that case, we're looking at the role of mechanics and structure, the role of environment in specifying changes in growth, form, pattern, etc. And new this year, we had the fourth module that rounded out the first half of the semester was taught by Design Tech Innovation Fellow Samuel Letter, which was focused on collective robotic construction. And this image highlights one of the concluding workshops as part of the module. And again, this work will be featured this evening in the exhibition. Daniel will be talking about the course that he has been leading with Marcelo, Design for Physical Interaction in Depth, so I'll just highlight it here. We piloted aspects of this together with Wendy Ju, who's an expert in human-computer interaction. This is a required course, and it's structured through both a lecture and a lab format. And essentially, students are learning about human-computer interaction, but also the technical sides of that, developing methods, learning how to explore physical computing through Arduino boards, soldering, etc. Coding for Design has been taught by Adam Burke, and again, this is a required course where students learn how to apply code towards meaningful applications through design scenarios. And we're always looking for synergies between the studio and the two required courses. And I would say some of the students are really pushing the boundaries and opportunities for that. We also host electives, and we reserve seats for students outside of design tech in the spirit of really generating a collaborative student environment where students are coming from different backgrounds. This semester, actually this was in semester one, where Lawson Spencer, who's an instructor in design tech and also is providing technical instruction in robotics, taught a course on robotic fabrication and design, and specifically looking at the promise of rethinking timber joinery. And Adam taught an elective titled From MLPs to APIs, looking at AI and design broadly defined. And this semester, Tiffany has been teaching, as she mentioned, a really exciting course on biomimetics and design, or the bio-inspired transfer through emerging tech. And Lawson has taught a part two to his robotic fabrication course, which is focused on parametric assemblies. Adam has also been teaching a second course looking broadly at AI and design, and more specifically, an introduction to differentiable inverse design. And Marina has been teaching an elective focused on anthropocentric models of making with cooperative robots. And she has some of her work that touches these areas on view in the exhibit. And then lastly, we have an elective this semester that Dick Cahoon has taught. Dick was the director for our Center for Technology and Licensure, or tech transfer here at Cornell for many years. And now is teaching a really exciting course on invention and design, where students are learning the aesthetic versus function continuum and its relevance to IP, or intellectual property considerations. So now a little bit about the Cornell Tech portion of the curriculum for the studio track students. So we have two tracks, as you know. We have the thesis research track, as well as the studio professional track in the MS. And so in the second year, students in the studio professional track go to Cornell Tech. You are in the umbrella of Cornell Tech, so you will be Cornell Tech students in design tech. And in the fall, you will be immersed in the studio curriculum, beginning with Product Studio. And the Product Studio is taught by a studio team. This is Josh, who's one of the directors. We also piloted this. We had our students taking Product Studio for 4 years to test that. And I will say that the teams that had our design students really just rocked it and developed amazing projects, some of which spun out in the spring, which I'll come back to in a moment. And so the way that this is organized, in the spring preceding the installment of Product Studio, the studio team puts out a call for prompts in the form of a question, how might we? And that invitation goes out to companies, NGOs, nonprofits, practices, et cetera. They submit those prompts, and around 100 are selected. And that becomes the question that you work on in your teams. You're able to pick your top 3, right? So you'll be working on something that you're interested in. And you'll go through a curriculum where by the end of the studio, you will have developed a product. And some of the example prompts include, this one was from Adobe. And the prompt was, how might we validate the authenticity of digital content shared on social networks and attribute the content to the creator? Frog challenged our students with, how might we use wearables and/or sensors to enhance a design researcher's ability to draw more valuable insights while in the field? Alongside studio, the studio professional track students in the second year will also take specialization projects together with design tech faculty who will be hired this year and in place for our first class of students. And these specialization projects include co-mentoring students in project-based design learning to expand offerings in emerging tech, and importantly, working with diverse communities. This is Niti, who runs the Maker Lab at Cornell Tech, and she's been leading some really exciting workshops with the local community, including the community on Roosevelt Island. So this is the curriculum at a glance. So here we are in the first year. So everyone spends their first year here in Ithaca. We're in the second semester of our inaugural year with our first class of students. So as mentioned, you'll take studio, the 2 required courses, and then you'll have an elective, which either can be inside design tech from some of the suite of electives that I just mentioned, or outside of design tech. It could be in architecture, it could be in computer science, engineering, et cetera. And that curriculum is extended into the second semester. And then you have an option in the summer, if you choose to stay here in Ithaca, to, for example, work in faculty labs on core research. And this is a non-tuition bearing credit shell that just allows you to maintain your students' status on campus during the summer. And in the second year, this is when you split into the 2 tracks. In the thesis research track, which is a smaller cohort, those students most likely will stay here in Ithaca. You'll develop a committee with a committee chair, as well as minor members outside of design tech. Your committee chair will be a faculty member that is within the department, but we encourage the minor members to be outside of design tech to really push the transdisciplinary aspects of your research topic. And you'll also be able to take electives that support your thesis research project in the fall and the spring semester. And then, as mentioned, the studio professional track students head to Cornell Tech in New York City. You'll take your specialization project. Again, that's an opportunity for you to deepen an aspect of a project that you want to explore, either in a team or individually with a faculty member. And you'll have an opportunity to take electives offered jointly by Cornell Tech, Design Tech, as well as the participating programs at AAP NYC, which includes architecture, planning, advanced urban design, as well as urban tech. And then in the spring semester, it's a similar curriculum, but you'll have more choice in terms of the studio that you take, which includes Startup Studio, Big Co Studio, PyTech, which is Public Interest Studio, as well as an elective. And I will mention at the end of the spring semester at Cornell Tech, there's a really exciting opportunity for all of you in the studio curriculum in your teams to compete for the runway. And usually there are 6 finalists, and between 2 to 3 groups that are awarded funds to spin out. And typically, the award winners receive $100,000 in funding to incubate. You get space at Cornell Tech to work on your project further, as well as a professional advising team. So it's a pretty amazing opportunity to spin out your product and work with industry partners. And there's been tremendous success in those companies continuing beyond the startup phase. Just a couple of highlights here in terms of what the program has inspired in terms of collaborations. There have been amazing collaborations that have been formed through the XR Collaboratory. This is directed by Harold Haraldson, where students from both AAP and Cornell Tech have been working together to integrate cutting-edge XR technologies, so VR, augmented reality, et cetera. And in this project, it was really focused on alternative forms of communication. Our thesis research students are also actively publishing, and some of our studio professional track students will be submitting some of their projects this semester for publication. And this includes co-authored scientific and technical papers. Our MS MDC, Matter Design Computation students, which was the precursor program that is now the MS and Design Technology students as a program, they've been incredibly successful in publishing by peer review, most of them leaving the program with at least 1 paper, if not 2. And students in the thesis research track will also submit your thesis project as a written text to the repository in the graduate school on eCommons. This was the very first thesis for the MDC program submitted by Leo, which was focused on programmable Kirigami and very much linked to ongoing research in my lab. And I'll mention that Leo completed his PhD at CMU, and he just landed a tenure track position, which is super exciting. So in terms of where our students will end up, our amazing graduates, you will be leaders in industry and practice. Design has increasingly gained more value, and especially designers that not only have the ability to think iteratively and synthetically around a set of design questions and problems, but importantly to work across disciplines, right? And to really be a leader in that space. So Our students will end up in practice, alternative forms of practice, in big tech, and innovative companies. And our thesis research students, many of them will end up pursuing a PhD, and we have an incredible track record for that in the precursor program, going on to competitive PhD programs, and eventually landing tenure track positions, starting innovative labs that cut across disciplines. And we now have 4 MDC graduates that are all in tenure track positions doing that. And a little bit about our facilities. I mentioned what's happening in New York City. As you probably noticed, we have a big adaptive reuse project going on in the Sibley Dome, which is a historic building. It was actually where one of the very first drafting studios was located in the architecture program. Design Tech will have a permanent home here, facing the Arts Quad, and we'll share a space with the Center for Cities that looks out onto the Foundry and the parking area, as well as a pinup space and a shared kitchen that has an espresso maker. We fought hard for that, as our faculty know. So this will really be a meetup spot. So this will be the permanent home for Design Tech. Just above that will be the Commons, which is flex space for students to work on projects. And then the dome, the historic dome, will now frame what will be a new auditorium, which we're really excited about. And these renderings by Work AC, the practice that we commissioned to develop this project, they've been amazing to work with. So here you can see the Design Tech studio space, the historically protected windows looking out onto the Arts Quad, the Commons with the flex space looking down, and then another view, this is of the Commons, so the Design Tech space is down here, and then the auditorium in the middle, and a section of that with the dome in view. And then switching to Design Tech at Cornell Tech, this is the innovation, Tata Innovation Center, which is, it was designed by Weiss Manfredi, Marion Weiss and Michael Manfredi. Michael Manfredi is actually a graduate of our BARC program, and I used to teach with Marion at a different institution, which I won't mention, but they're amazing architects, amazing building. And this is the new home for AAP NYC, shared together with Cornell Tech spaces. Design Tech has a permanent home here in the studio. We have seminar rooms as well as faculty offices. And this just gives you a sense of the incredible space and views looking south towards the UN and down the East River. And this is Bob Balder, our executive director for our AAP NYC programs. So with that, I'm going to pause and take any questions that you may have, and then I'm going to pass it to my colleague Itai Cohen to talk a little bit about his work.
Thanks, Jenny. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about the lab that I run. I am technically in the physics department. I'm also part of the inaugural faculty of Design Tech. And throughout my career, the lab has really been breaking the boundaries of sort of the disciplinary silos that we often find ourselves in. And so much of the things that I've been able to do here are really the result of the fantastic campus that we're located in. And the lab that I run focuses on a variety of projects. We've done everything from look at how crowds in mosh pits organize into circle pits and mosh, like actual mosh pits. We've looked at that same type of organization, but now in fruit flies. And we're looking into thinking about how bacteria organize in the microbiome. Right? This is not typical stuff that you would see in any one department, but there are lots of people who are curious on our campus. And so in this particular project, we started thinking more broadly of how to apply these ideas to things like demography and residential segregation in our neighborhoods. And so we pulled in people from the demography department to start to think about how to create theories for understanding the behaviors of people and their interactions with one another. Again, not something that you would typically see in any one boundary, but we found that we could apply the tools of statistical physics to these problems as well. We work on things like magnetic interactions. So here we're trying to create a magnetic version of DNA where instead of having the codons for ATCG, now you can have magnetic patterns on individual elements, little panels. And the magnetic patterns are going to be, you know, north-north, south-south, or north-south, north-south. And panels that have complementary patterns are going to be able to bind to each other. That's why in this particular movie, the green bind to the green, the blue to the blue, and the red to the red. And we're now shrinking these devices down to the micron scale. So now we have microscopic patterns with magnetic domains that we're fabricating in the nanofabrication facility. Right? Again, not something that you can do in any one department or without the kinds of unique resources that we have at Cornell. My lab is also fascinated with flight, so we study fruit flies, and then we figured out that we could actually genetically manipulate these fruit flies so that we could shine light on them and turn individual neurons on and off. How is the brain of a fly organized? That's a design problem. It's biology's design problem. Could we learn how to take the things that we understand from the brain of the fly and completely revolutionize the way that we design our robots, right? Microscopic robots, like the ones that you're seeing here, another passion of mine, have a really limited ability in the sense that we don't have much power, we don't have a very big footprint for a large brain, we can't put the CPU of, you know, an NVIDIA GPU on this thing, so we have to completely think differently about robotics at this scale. We can't send in a robot like we do at the macro scale to scan the environment with LiDAR and then with an expensive CPU build a three-dimensional, version of what they're seeing and then do waypoint finding to get the robot to locomote. We have to completely throw all of that away. It's way too much energy usage, way too much computational power. Could we try to learn from these animals how they navigate their environment, how they create goal setting, how they figure out what to do in extreme circumstances, all with 100,000 neurons. And then we study things like cartilage. So Jenny talked about Larry Bonassa's work where he was printing a three-dimensional ear. So we work with Larry, and one of the things that we've discovered is that many of the materials in our body, like cartilage, tendon, meniscus, all of these soft tissues, one of the things that characterizes them is that they undergo mechanical phase transitions, or they somehow construct the tissue so that it's near a mechanical phase transition. And that ends up being very useful for tuning the properties of these materials. So this is sort of the world that you would be entering here. It's a really fun campus. You can put pieces together here that you really would find difficult to do anywhere else. There are amazing facilities, amazing faculty, expertise that span engineering, the arts, the sciences, and you can pretty much do whatever you're interested in, which is really what I think is the ultimate fun part about the university. So I'll go through a few more slides and kind of show you a couple of highlights here and there that might be interesting. In our lab, we had to start thinking about making microscopic robots, and one of the things that's difficult about the microscale is that you can't just sort of build machines the way that you do at the macro scale. At the macro scale, we can take components and we can screw them together and like assemble things, but at the micro scale, we don't have any nano screws, we don't have nano screwdrivers, and we don't have nano engineers to screw the nano screws with the nano screwdrivers, right? Like the whole thing has to be completely reimagined. And so we thought, well, what if we could just fold the robot, right? So if I cannot play media, okay, well, imagine these sheets are folding actually into these structures, okay? So what you're seeing here is a Miura Ori fold, and this is the world's smallest duck. Each of these is about the footprint of a hair diameter. Okay, and these are structures that can be dynamically folded and unfolded, which is what you would have seen in the videos, right? And these structures are absolutely spectacular. These thin, the bright yellow parts, those are only 10 nanometers thick. The dark yellow, that's a half micron of silicon dioxide, of glass, all right, that is keeping the facets rigid. And so by having an actuator, little tiny regions that fold, you can create mountains and valleys and create this type of structure, right? And we've even managed to make these kinds of robots where now, by shining light on photovoltaics, you can actuate the folding of the front legs or the back legs. And this particular robot is 40 microns by 70 microns by 2 microns. And so for a long time, it held the record for the world's smallest walking robot. We actually just beat that record by about an order of magnitude, all right? So with another set of robots. And moving sort of beyond that to the realm of kirigami, where now you're cutting the paper, this allows you to start thinking about making robots that you could print as sheets, but would then be allowed to expand and fold into the third dimension to create a metamaterial robot that is able to completely morph and adapt its shape. And this is one of the projects that really connected Jenny and me, because we figured out that we could make these kinds of structures, but now at the macro scale. There's a scale invariance here, and that was part of the inspiration for Helioskin and the types of structures that we want to make now at the macro scale to incorporate photovoltaics in an aesthetic sort of manner. So there's a lot more. We've made robotic arms at the micro scale. So again, this is a robot arm about the size of an individual hair. These structures can swing, they can lift, they can twist, they can grasp things, and we're learning how to manipulate them. These will be the future of surgical tools, right? Shrinking the kinds of tools that surgeons have down by an order of magnitude. And we've even ventured into the textile arts. So this is a very famous painting by Bronzino, and one of the things that's really fun about here is the yoke that Lucrezia is wearing. The yoke, I learned, is this part of the dress, and if you look really close, that part of the yoke is an origami pattern, all right? And this was an area that was right up our alley, and so we figured out that we could start to make fabrics. Actually, a lot of the origami arts started in the textile arts, and so we had some students who decided to take what we were learning in the lab and start to make clothing out of it. And so this is some of the designs that they made. And we took a little design that my postdoc Ben Liu made, and we turned that into a beautiful dress. And we took a design for a structure that could fold up and in this sort of unique way. And we were able to take that and then turn that into a bag. And then we had the opportunity to display our clothing and textiles at a fashion show. So a physicist like me got to go to a fashion show. And this was like some of the amazing things that we saw there. These are some of the other patterns that the people were displaying. And these were some of the things that we were seeing and we were making. So this is the scene, you know, like as you're madly trying to sew everything up on the models in the backstage. And this is the clothing line that our students developed from the kinds of origami patterns that we were investigating in our labs. And the crème de la crème was this purse, which again folded up so that you could have a handbag that would allow you to expand and contract depending on what it is that you had in there. So this sort of foray into the sciences, the arts, this has really been a fantastic journey for me, and I hope it sort of gives you a taste of the kinds of transdisciplinary interactions that you would have access to here on this campus. I think that's me, so thank you.
And Now I'll invite Tiffany.
All right, so I'm Tiffany Chang, and I'm going to be talking about something called material programming. That's something that I focus on in both my research and my teaching. A really good example of this is in nature. So in nature, you see a lot of integration between materials, structure, and functions, such that the pine cone, for example, can autonomously open and close its scales in response to environment. So what I do is I work with bio-based materials like cellulose, which you find in things like the pine cone, agricultural waste, forest waste. I work also with biologists to study the structure of biological materials and replicate those structures through things like additive manufacturing, and also study how they respond to the environment so that we can design shapes and shape changes that are 100% powered by the environment. So there are a couple of themes that I work on that I have been working on in the past 8 or so years. So one of the topics is computational design and 4D printing, how to merge, the physical and digital to create materials that respond to environmental stimuli like humidity. We do that by controlling the 3D printer, through custom code in order to create these really intricate structures at the sub-millimeter scale to create specific changes in shape. So another area that we are looking at is how to work with not just hobbyist machines like desktop 3D printers that I showed in the previous slide, but also with industrial platforms, conventional construction materials to potentially integrate into existing manufacturing processes. So we work with wood, timber, which is a very known material that we've worked with in our human history for a long time, and work with technical polymers and combine these with automation, with robotic arms to create shaped curves at large scale, which typically relies on things like subtractive machining or mechanical force to kind of shape them. So these are just shaping just by acclimating to the environment. Another aspect is to look at biological role models beyond things like the pine cone, which actually we're still learning about every day, but new biological role models like, for example, this is an air potato plant, which interestingly generates its squeezing forces through a very smart mechanism. So we study those mechanisms, we translate it to 4D printing, and then we apply it to applications like orthotics and wearable devices. So we can also use computational design to not only copy biology to engineering solutions, but we can also use computational design and digital fabrication technologies to learn about nature as well. Another very strong interest of mine is scaling up, how to make real impact from within the lab into the real world. So that involves, building prototypes. This is a facade mock-up that we test under real weather conditions for over a year. We designed a facade system that responds to temperature, and it doesn't use any operating energy to basically shade when it gets hot. So right now you're seeing in the winter, the temperature is quite low, around 5 degrees Celsius, but coming up soon, you'll see a warm day that goes up to about 20, and you'll see that they actually autonomously close. So this would be a very good solution for regulating the inside of buildings. And I also really like the shadows that it creates. So there's also an aesthetic component to that as well. So I do all this to present an alternative to conventional methods of making. And the reason that's really important is because both the construction industry and also manufacturing accounts for over 2/3 of the world's annual carbon emissions. So by designing materials that change shape on their own, this is one way that we can tackle manufacturing. the embedded energy of intensive materials like steel, concrete, and also the energy required, for example, in heating our buildings and cooling. So some of the other kind of topics that I'm currently working on here at Cornell are designing new types of mechanisms. So for example, combining self-shaping materials with origami. So here you're seeing curved crease origami structures combined with self-shaping materials as a way to amplify the motion and the shape change of the materials that we're working with. For this project, we're also working with physicists, which is an interesting collaboration. I also am looking into manufacturing processes, new manufacturing processes, and how to actually integrate into existing manufacturing workflows. So I'm working with timber manufacturers to find out how to best integrate these new technologies into their workflows. I'm also interested in not just building scale or large scale, but also on the body, designing for the body, for areas like assistive wearable devices, how to design better orthotics or splints that have adaptive capabilities to release pressure points or to adaptively tighten. And finally, looking into buildings. Hopefully in this new project, we're aiming to completely replace materials like steel to have our material be not only responsive, but also load-bearing. And interestingly, with this project, we're actually it's a very interdisciplinary project. We're working with material scientists, we're working with physicists, and in order to tackle this very large problem. So all that is with the goal of building a future where hopefully our technologies are no different from nature. Thanks.
So my name is François Gambrotier, and I'm a faculty both in design tech and also in information science. My primary interest has been research at the interface between hardware and software, and in general, I try to design a new hardware that will let us discover a new way to interact either with computer, more recently with robot. I did a lot of robotic in support of embodiment to teach design. I'm also very interested in all aspects of fabrication, and I think, in fact, tonight you can see example of what I've been doing. I've been doing interactive fabrication, as well as knitting and solid knitting, where we knit a complete volume directly on the machine. I don't have a presentation, unfortunately, but that's what I do. Yeah.
And I'd also like to invite colleague Uli Weissner to say a few words.
All righty, thank you very much, Jenny. I'm really excited to be here. Yesterday we had a fantastic visit, or at the beginning of the week, with the new faculty. We are hiring, so the department is growing. Super exciting to see the engineering college and the AAP college to grow together. People are talking, and to see young people coming in and being excited about this is really amazing. So I'm in material science and engineering over in the engineering college. I'm a chemist from training, physical chemist, was trained in Germany all my career. And then someone said, "Herr Wiesner, you should apply at Cornell." And I go like, okay. And then I applied, the rest is history. So this is how I got here. Never looked back. I'm really excited to be part of this program. I think we're in really exciting times in many respects, but one of the exciting things is that the barriers between disciplines, between colleges, are basically crumbling, and we have big problems that need kind of young minds that can think across different disciplines, across different barriers to actually go ahead and solve these really important problems. And so I'm an excited member of this department, and am really thrilled to be able to welcome the next class of new students that I hope you will be part of. And I think the program is pretty amazing because of the diversity of backgrounds that you will see. So the way I always describe it is that a lot of a lot of students have two hearts beating in their chest. One is for the arts and one is for kind of the sciences per se. And then through the educational system, at a certain point, young minds are being pushed to make a decision which path they go. And it's either, you know, science and engineering or it's the arts. And then they basically go through that tunnel and then halfway they think like, am I still at the right place? And those are often some of the most creative, most imaginative minds. And, you know, they're getting pressed into this educational channel and they feel not at home. So I've seen that with my students. I've seen that with other students that I've talked to. And one of the things that this new environment provides is a platform for these people to feel at home. And then to basically, you know, work on their aspirations and basically use their creativity to break down these silos and generate new ideas and new projects and work together with people across all these disciplines. So I haven't said much about myself. What I'm personally interested in is kind of materials as a chemist that are at small scales. So we do what we call molecular engineering and molecular design to basically, from the bottom up, develop materials that then have certain functions at the macro scale. And what I use this new role in this new department for myself is to learn from everybody around me how to bridge these different length scales all the way from the molecular to the macroscopic human architectural scale, which is really challenging but really intellectually quite exciting. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Right. So now I think we're going to open it up to a Q&A. I'll put our Zoomers on the screen here, and we can just have a more informal chat about the department and answer any questions that you have. We have students in the program here, a number of faculty, so I look forward to having a conversation.
So again, what I noticed is that you're doing a lot of cutting edge work here, which is very futuristic and conceptual and bringing concepts to applications. How much is the sort of collaboration with the corporate world or the real world in terms of either reverse engineering, not reverse engineering, but actually delivering what they are looking for? Or is it like Steve Jobs said, the customer doesn't know what he wants and you give it to him? Or is it like working closely with them while you design the program? Over the last 4 years, you said you had this experimental phase. So can you talk a little bit about step by step in this journey, how the companies have been involved in leading you where you should go or going together to the destination?
So great question. I think the way that I would answer that initially is in the studio professional track, and especially in the second year, the students will be engaged very closely with industry. And so, for example, in the product studio, the companies, nonprofits, practices, et cetera, that get selected by the studio team based on their question, their how might we, their prompt, they're also committing to being advisors to the students. And so in the product studio, the student teams, which are composed of students coming from different areas, different graduate programs, they will work very closely with those industry advisors. And they have meetings, they have crit sessions. So that's a pretty unique opportunity for the students to work in a very fluid way with industry. And there are mechanisms in place to ensure that that is super fluid. And for example, no IP is exchanged, right? So that provides an environment where creativity can really flourish. In the first year, it's really focused on process and developing foundational skills that are both technical, but also importantly, focused on developing hybrid thinking in design across disciplines. And that's why, for example, in the first semester, we have Uli teaching a module, we have biomedical engineers teaching modules, so that the students begin, we throw a lot at them, as they can all attest to, especially in the first semester. Develop skills to actually start to focus what they want to work on, right? What topics do they want to integrate? And while that may be scary to some of the students, right? Because the first semester especially very much focused on process, what they're developing is a set of skills that then they can apply towards applications when they're beginning to work with partners. In the thesis track, students also have opportunities to work with industry if they're interested. If their thesis project or topic relates to manufacturing, for example, or robotic fabrication. Tiffany mentioned some examples. And maybe the last thing I'll say, we also get industry engagement in other ways. So for example, Autodesk has been a supporter. They're very interested in the type of work that we're doing. And importantly, from a standpoint that's not just like we want to hire your graduates, but you guys are innovating new pedagogical models and new research models, and we want to see what you're doing. So does that answer your question? Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Maybe I'll pass the mic around, because I think many of our faculty that are teaching in the program are also actively engaged with industry, and that input informs how they approach teaching. I mean, I could answer that from my perspective, but maybe Tiffany, do you want to?
I can say a few words about that. So I've interfaced with industry in a few different ways. One way is through sponsored research. So companies are often interested in discussing, supporting the research and maybe some ideas that arise from that. They're really curious about, the new ideas to build their portfolio of products. So that's one way. Another way is direct interaction. So in one of my, I guess, ongoing projects that I'm continuing, we have a startup that is actually involved, and they're wondering if it is possible, or they're interested in upscaling the materials that they're developing, their bio-based foam materials that they want to break into the construction industry. So that's one way. That's kind of a new project, so let's see how that goes. But and then sometimes they're just interested in donating the materials and seeing what we do with it. So it's kind of the different ways that I've experienced.
Yeah, I wanted to give a different angle, and that is disruption doesn't happen from the big companies. Disruption always happens when young people have ideas and they just go and do it themselves, because everything that's big has grown from something small. So something that's actually not as much known, Cornell is incredibly good in startups. When you look at the S&P 500, the number of companies that actually originated from Cornellians is quite substantial. It's not known because we don't talk as much about it as other places, but Cornell is a powerhouse when it comes to entrepreneurial activities. So a number of us in the faculty have gone through the entire process and have actually seen products from our laboratory all the way to the market, not just startup company and then we do research forever, but actually have done the full translation from the lab all the way to a product on the market. So we have a lot of experience, and Cornell has a growing and improving infrastructure that provides for people that are interested in this. Just one thing to mention, we have a really top business school at Cornell with software that if someone has an idea, you can go and do market analysis in order to see whether there's a market for your product. all of these tools are available to the students for free. So I think there is institutional know-how. The faculty that are involved in the program have a lot of experience in this. So we have, through the connection with New York City, as I don't have to explain to anyone, has the headquarters of everyone and everything you can possibly imagine. So the infrastructure, in order to really break through and, you know, give ideas legs to run into the marketplace, is all there.
Yeah, I can maybe briefly contribute to that. I want to echo a little bit Uli's comment that I don't necessarily think that the teaching curriculum is a smart idea to be driven by industry demands, because we want to introduce a new way of thinking about technology and design. Nevertheless, I think a number of faculty, when they engage with industry, me included, we have had cases where industry has a technology that is rather new, but they still don't know what to do with it. So they're excited to be partners with a university where we're a bit more free in exploring ideas through transdisciplinary research and think about how to use the technology, but also other times where industry comes in with a limitation that they need to be solved. We can also be critical about thinking about that and identifying the gaps currently in industry and where we can contribute further. So we had also have research outputs that have been transformed into spin-offs, as Uli saying, entrepreneurship, and navigate that still at the university level, how to spin out and how to form companies outside of the academic world. Yeah. And students are engaged in those processes, right? Either through mentorship or being part of the conversation, which I think is important.
Maybe one last quick comment. The Cornell Chronicle just did a really great article on our collaborative project Helioskin, which I briefly mentioned, which Itai is a part of. And a science writer for the BBC picked it up, and it's since gone viral, which is exciting. And I suddenly was like, a little worried about protecting this. And within 24 hours, having contacted our office, our CTL, we've trademarked the name, and there's a provisional patent application in place. So when they see that there's relevance and real invention, it's amazing, as Uli mentioned, the resources that will be thrown at it.
These individuals just said about entrepreneurship. I just like from a storytelling perspective, I came here to Cornell like very excited about like ventures and like startup culture and whatnot. I participated in hackathons that are open to everybody across the school, graduate, undergraduate. You can meet people from the business school, from the Johnson School. And in my experience, I've met a vast majority of individuals who are also excited about the same things that I'm exploring in Studio as well. So Studio has helped me foster kind of that entrepreneurial drive and that that know-how in communicating with other people about concepts and topics. But also like this networking has gotten me opportunities as well. So through a hackathon, I've managed to partner with colleagues, and now I'm going to be participating in an accelerator this summer through the school. So the opportunities are there for the students that have that drive, and I do believe that the disruptions in industry do happen outside of the larger corporate companies.
Are there any questions for those of you that are online? Feel free to unmute yourself, or if you want to put it in the chat. Great. So wondering how large the incoming class will be. So this coming fall, we are anticipating a class of 24. That's our goal, a yield of 24 students. The following year, we're actually going to grow by a section, so we'll be adding 12. So we do have a growth model, but we'll not go beyond 48. But that won't be until 2030. So 24 students. And a brand new space.
Hi, my name is Yun Tao. Thank you for the presentations. I very enjoy kind of like all the projects. And one thing that I very it's like very passion driven me is from the quote that we are both the heart of art and science. Because like about my personal background, I'm more like about from the art background. And one thing when I learned from my bachelor study in architecture and also design is like, I mean, it's very important to have the ideas and concept, but also having the, I guess, kind of like, the potential and like all the possibilities to make the idea come true. So one thing that I very personally, I guess, like very like focus will be how to kind of make the idea from like either arts and science, but also kind of to pushing the idea to come true. And that brings me to our project, which I found is quite engaging that we can working as a group. So my question, also following the class size, is like, how many students like are they working in a group, and what is the size, and like how many groups there will be? Especially from the second year at Cornell Tech. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your comments. I'll maybe kick off, and then I'll ask some of our current students to chat a bit about their experience working either individually or in groups. So in the first year, in the fall semester, you'll start out working individually. And that's actually quite important in terms of skill building and developing a way of working as process through the modules, some of which I talked about. And then you'll shift into working in groups. And these are smaller groups of 2 or 3. And that continues into the spring semester. The thesis research track students work individually, and that's especially important in the spring semester because you're engaged in pre-thesis work. And then the studio professional track students at Cornell Tech, you will be working in groups the entire time, with one exception in the specialization project. If you choose to work individually, that is an opportunity for you to do that. In Product Studio, typically the groups are between 4 and 5 students. And the studio team takes into account your top 3 choices in terms of the project topic you want to work on. And then they also importantly create teams of students that are coming from different backgrounds. So you're not going to be in a group with all CS students, and you're not going to be in a group with all design students. It'll be a real mix. MBA students, law tech students, connective media students, design tech, and beyond. But I'll pass it to maybe Kobe and Thomas to say a few things about maybe Yuji too.
So hello, my name is Kobe again. I'm a current design technology student. One of the biggest things that I think is important to remember about collaboration is that you bring your own set of skills and perspectives on a project, and that this program is built to not have people of the same background engaging on the same topics. Everybody in this program comes from a different background, a different perspective, and we all are really interested in like what that perspective has on the topic at hand. And so the projects that we engage in throughout the first year especially are very exploratory. We want to engage in all these different ideas. So in Design for Physical Interaction, for example, we started with building one-dimensional video games and then created AI interactive objects. Then we created haptic devices, and we're engaging in so many different areas and bringing our own expertise to that. So I think it's important that that is also in the consideration that you don't just have this one perspective idea on how you think collaboration could be. And I think we've embraced that. And so I honestly think that in every single time we've done a project, which there are projects in every single class, I don't think I've seen the same group form more than once, which is really fun because we're always like working on something new and trying new things. And I know that's been especially important for me coming from an evolutionary biology background because learning how to create really good coding skills has led to some really great projects. And the same thing could be said. Maybe do you want to say more? I've worked with Yuji before.
Hello for the people at home. But yeah, picking up from what Kobe was saying, on a technical standpoint as well, it's really interesting to see how the different backgrounds collide and combine. In the first semester, I was working with people that have a completely different background. I come from architecture and computational design, but having people from computer science, engineering, or information science was very almost eye-opening because seeing how they work and how they operate was very inspiring, and in a way, it forced the project to go to a different direction.
Yeah, and I also want to say that, you know, the cohorts that have been selected are also very deliberate in the sense that whilst we have different backgrounds, we all seem to share an appreciation for cross-disciplinary research and like incorporating principles from nature into design and, you know, having these, you know, other kinds of interests that can collide with all these, you know, designing across disciplines frameworks. So I think we all start off at the same place in the sense that we're exposed to a very new framework of designing. So we're all in the same boat in that respect. But we end up in very different trajectories, and I think that's kind of beautiful in its own right.
Question in the back.
Hello. Just to kind of add on and follow up on that, I was thinking about that exact topic about the cross collaboration between people from backgrounds, different disciplines. But I can also imagine, depending on the ideas, right, there's limitations to within the design tech graduates in terms of certain projects might require more CS or more engineering. Is it common for these projects to maybe pick up students outside of the graduate major and bring them in on projects to just, you know, add that manpower to make the possibility of whatever these projects are, you know, more feasible in a shorter timeline?
So great question. So normally the projects that you focus on don't delve into like other like majors, like other people won't be adding to your project. But I think that's on purpose because, for example, if you come, like for me, I don't come from a computer science background. And so it exposed me and almost forced me to learn more on computer science and coding for Python, which then allowed me to advance, like really advance Arduino engineering and then later onto Raspberry Pi. So now I have this entire skill set to accomplish projects because I worked with people that wanted to go to the next level with those maybe like more computer engineering skills. But I don't think this ever limited projects at all because, for example, I worked with another student on an AI environmental sensor, and both of us didn't have any coding experience in that, but we were able to create something from the biology side and fabricate it into a completely new perspective than what maybe someone with just coding perspective would have done, because it allowed us to challenge, like, this is what we know how to do simply, and this is how we can expand it. But I think there are a lot of opportunities outside of the classroom to engage across the departments, whether through research, which then you'll see a little bit more collaboration with, for example, I work in the Sabin lab, and we have people from plant sciences to computer science to computational biology, and so we're engaging in these projects that way. But then also Thomas can speak more for, like, hackathons are great ways to engage, where not only are you working on projects that maybe you've brought from studio, but you're seeing them in different lights because of collaborations across the university.
Yeah, I mean, very succinctly put, yeah, that kind of encapsulates that aspect of like the cross-disciplinary collaboration. I do also want to say, like, if you're nervous about like delving into like a field that's like outside of your comfort zone, like that's going to be a very big process of design. So you're going to get used to that feeling, but you're going to get comfortable with that feeling, and you're going to be comfortable speaking to so many different experts, so many different, you know, just dabbling into these different domains. You know, the solutions, quote unquote, you know, that we come up with are applicable across scales. And that really showcases with the research of the faculty, but also kind of the work that you're going to be doing in studio as well. So you'll be surprised by kind of the discoveries and the collaborations that you have along the way.
I'll just add too, it's a really great question, that there are opportunities to work with students outside of design tech, especially through our electives. So like in Tiffany's elective, Tiffany has students from engineering, CS, design tech, architecture, right? So that's also a way to engage with students outside of the department. And then secondly, through your faculty, right? So our inaugural faculty, for example, we represent the 5 participating colleges. Francois in information science, Uli's in material science, Itai's physics, right? So if there are students, especially in the second year, for example, with thesis research track projects, you can tap your home faculty and work with PhD students that might be in their lab to bolster an area that's you feel is outside of your domain that you could collaborate on. So there are ways to make those connections too. There was a question in the chat about RA and TA-ships. So we do have a limited number of RA-ships and TA-ships that are awarded at the point of admissions. We will have the opportunity to award some additional RA and TA-ships in the second year, and we do that based on our TA needs in the core courses in the first year. And then the RA-ships are an opportunity to work on core research with faculty. So for example, some of our fellows, as well as tenure track faculty, have RAs that are assigned to them that allow them to not only receive funds, but also to work on core research.
I had a follow-up question to the elective topic. So I understand that the professional track students are second year electives. Well, I guess we have slightly more allocation to electives in our second year. Are there within design tech and then the other departments around that are collaborating on the design tech department, do they offer electives that can be accessed remotely? Like if we are in Cornell Tech and we want to take like a mechanical engineering class that isn't offered at the Cornell Tech campus, is there a way for us to still engage in those classes, or are we just going to be limited to what's offered on Roosevelt Island?
Good question. We don't have online courses that, in fact, other than eCornell, which is outside of the department, and that's been in place for a while since the pandemic. We have had some exceptions, but unique to the Studio Professional Track students, I briefly mentioned this, with AAP NYC consolidating into one place. We've had a space in Lower Manhattan for years now for the architecture, art, and planning programs in New York City, but now everybody's going to be based on the 4th floor in the Tata Innovation building at Cornell Tech. And so that means the elective offerings that you have at your hands will increase, right? So electives that are being offered by architecture or planning across the programs, as well as a selection from Cornell Tech and of course design tech. So I think you'll have plenty of options to choose from. Yeah. The other thing I'll say is there's also opportunity to do an independent study as one of your electives, and that's an independently driven elective course, usually for 3 credits, which is the same as an elective, that you design together with your faculty advisor. So for example, if you wanted to work with Wendy Ju on a topic related to HCI or autonomous driving and her core research, you could do that at Cornell Tech, or with Harold Haraldson in the XR Collaboratory. He's so excited to work with our students. So there are ways to open that up as well. Okay. So question, hi, I was wondering, that is biology a mandatory research theme? I previously worked at the intersection of biology and design, but rather superficially due to equipment limitations. But I think I haven't truly understood the essence of bio, which has prevented me from being hooked for long. I hope to get some better explanation of this interdisciplinary topic. Could you please talk a little bit about this area? Really great question. Maybe I'll kick off and then I'll pass it to Tiffany. So in the first semester studio, as I mentioned, we kick off with a module that's focused on bio-inspired and generative design. And that module really is the key takeaway is to get you guys to think a bit differently around design processes, to shift away from, predetermining the final output or focusing prematurely on a problem statement, but instead to really engage in a process. And turning to nature for patterns and systems and models is a really excellent way to open that space up. That gets more focused in the second module, which I mentioned, which is taught by biomedical engineers, that's looking at morphogenesis, so how nature makes form, and deepening that as a process, as a way of thinking. And then beyond the studio, there are opportunities to really kind of deepen that trajectory and rigorously explore the promise of biology and extracting a set of rules and parameters and applying that towards different problems and questions. And I think Tiffany's elective is a great example of that. If that is a theme that you want to choose, right? And so that you don't have to pursue bio-inspired design if it's not of interest.
Yeah, just building off of that, I can speak a little bit about my course. So currently it's based on 3 different phases, and the students will do a literature study. Then they, in the second phase, they dissect figuratively, not literally, like the functional principles of a lot of biological role models that they're interested in, and do a design project. In the past, I had really good experience with co-teaching the course with a biologist, and that's something that I'm hoping to do to build in a future iteration of the course, hopefully even next year. But I had really good experiences with pairing biologists with the design students, with architecture students and engineers, and they work together to develop a new technology that's bio-inspired. So that's something that I found really, that yielded a lot of very interesting and novel results. And so I'll try to find a biologist partner to co-teach in the future.
I'll just add too that, if you decide that bio-inspired or biomimetic design is something of interest, a second way to really deepen that is to engage in core research with faculty. So for example, in my lab, we are working on a multi-year project that's supported by the National Science Foundation, together with plant biologists, brain scientists, biomedical engineers, where we are exploring rules of life as design drivers that cut across disparate biological systems. For example, Kobe is working on the brain and looking at motility and how cells are migrating across the brain. So there are different ways of getting involved depending on your interest, but if it's not of interest, then no, you don't have to pursue.
Thank you. I sort of had a question stemming from that, just because of my interest again in biology and microbiology. Does the department have like bio-based maker spaces or sort of open labs for working on this kind of stuff?
I'm going to have Laura talk a little bit about her experience with ELMI.
Thank you for your question. So that was I'm a visiting lecturer, as I mentioned before, and I co-teach the main studio. My research is primarily around topics of microbiology and synthetic biology. And so when I came to Cornell to teach at Cornell, I was happily surprised to learn about ELMI. It stands for the Engineered Living Materials Institute. And they have a biolab space there where they're looking for interdisciplinary projects where you can sort of work and develop your projects and your research with mentorship from the incredible leadership that is a part of ELMI. So there's amazing faculty, and we, have meetings where we share work, we, go over papers, we talk about the latest research that we're doing. So it's a really wonderful resource here at Cornell and in Ithaca to be able to push some of that work, yes.
I could also talk about this because this is related to my thesis work. But I work with ELMI and Dr. Meredith Silverstein, who's the director or co-director of ELMI. But there are spaces that are available. They definitely, it's like a conversation to show like what is it that you're interested within the space. But I think it's also important for just general biology in general, the value of CALS and the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences is world leading and definitely a big factor of why I was here. The researchers that we have across not only microbiology scales, but also larger scales from organismal biology to evolutionary biology. And every single one of them that I've experienced so far, which has been great, are so interested and open to collaboration and discussion about these projects. And we recently had a component as part of our studio to interview and reach out to people and see what their perspectives were on. And I got overwhelming responses from the CALS department, and hearing from people that now are core people is in my thesis work and progressing it now. So.
And I'm on the studio track, and so I was wondering, like, how does access to that sort of bio-based, like, hands-on activity sort of like change when I move to the other department or the other?
Yeah, that access in terms of wet labs, et cetera, is much more limited at Cornell Tech. I think they're just getting one wet lab online, but that's for a Cornell Tech faculty member. But there are other spaces in the city to get involved with, which again, maybe Laura, say a few words about what you've done with GenSpace.
Yeah, so I agree. So right now there's not a dedicated space, let's say a wet lab at Cornell Tech, but if you haven't already heard of GenSpace, they're in downtown Brooklyn, and they're a wonderful community lab space that welcomes all participants. And so I think they would be very welcoming and open to you doing some of the research there with them. And I'm always happy to make connections. But I worked in that lab for about a year, also pushing the research. So it's also another great way to extend your network, right, to another city and make connections between campuses and other institutes.
Are there any other questions online? Yes. So for those of you that weren't able to attend from the very beginning, this has been recorded, and we will put it up online and make sure that you all have the link, so you'll be able to watch it at a later point. Okay, second question. So thank you for the amazing presentation. I'm working a lot on computational wearable structure and textile design with 3D printing and other additive manufacturing methods. And I saw in the presentation a lot of exciting projects that have been going on in the program. I'm wondering how these research and projects will eventually lead to applications in the industry. How exactly would we collaborate with companies or resources that might be interested in these explorations? If you can talk a little bit about these existing collaborations, connections, and opportunities, that would be great. So we touched upon that a little bit. But maybe Francois, if you have any comments on how your work has intersected with industry related to textiles?
Well, as Uli was pointing out, I think it's so new that it hasn't interacted yet, but I am certainly connected with the industry through my collaborator, and in particular, I'm collaborating with the Rhode Island School of Design. And there they have extensive interaction with Nike and all the brand that we know. So even though I don't have directly contact through my collaborator, and I know that through the work I talked about, which was about solid knitting, this kind of new development in fabric is very exciting for the industry, for example.
Another one of our inaugural faculty, Professor Hee-Joo Park. He is in the College of Human Ecology and the Department of Human-Centered Design, and his expertise is in textile design and engineering as it's applied in wearables. And he's, together with his students, he's done some amazing work in collaboration with the women's hockey team here. So he really uses Cornell as a living lab to test the wearables and medically related devices that he's developing. So that's also an opportunity to explore with faculty. Any other questions? We're coming up to our time, and I want to make sure everybody has a little bit of a break before we go on our tour. Any final questions for our faculty or current students? One more online. Okay. Okay, so we got actually two more. So question about the specialization project and whether or not you have to develop one theme that you choose in both semesters. So the answer is no. We, by design, have not explicitly defined what the themes are or the outcomes of those courses. You'll be working closely with the design tech faculty that are 100% based at Cornell Tech. And it's an opportunity for you to deepen an exploration in a particular topic. So right now, for example, in the second semester studio, students are working in groups and developing pre-specialization projects. So they're doing user research, they're developing methods, looking at possible applications, doing literature review, and some of those project themes may push into the second year, which would be super exciting. In other cases, students might decide to take an aspect of product studio into a different direction, right? But you'll work closely with faculty to get, critique and advice on that. Let's see. One more question. This question, I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about the resources the department offers for students interested in HCI to get involved in research, connections to industry, or any other support for building a career in this area. So I think I'll have Francois again say a few things, and then maybe the students talk a little bit about what you've done in design for physical interaction.
Yes, so yes, the way I think the way things work in general is that the industry gets interested in your project or something which is kind of next to your project. And I think the first step that has been very successful for my student is to get an internship. I have many of my students who got an internship is, for example, Microsoft Research, some of them in Autodesk. And so they look at your research or at your work, and then after that they integrate what you did in their own products through that channel. And I think once you have been in an internship, it's much easier to interact with them and maybe become one of the member of their lab.
Yeah, hi, it's me again. So another great example of the HCI work is in Design for Physical Interaction, which is a core class and lab that we have as part of Design Tech students, is exploration throughout like what is interaction design using computers and using Arduino systems. And so again, it's very exploratory. We look at starting from just very simple code to create really interactive interfaces through one-dimensional video games, and that changed to AI integrated objects, which then there are some other people in the room, but Bo and Wei Ching, we went to an AI hackathon and then created another interactive object for teaching and learning education, which I got a lot of people interacting with at least my LinkedIn about that product, which was really cool. But then the second part of that is looking at groups like, or topics like haptics and telepresence. And so you're seeing all these different areas that maybe you weren't exposed to about human interaction design with computers. And a really great example of that is I worked with another student, his name is Ray. We created a haptic parasite, which essentially lived on your body as a wearable that actually responded to what was happening in the computer. And so it gave this new presence to the computing body that you have. Was it a symbiotic relationship of your interaction with the computer, or was it parasitic that it was causing you to think differently about your relationship? So I think all of that to say that there's a lot of exploration in ACI through this program, and our professors definitely lead you towards, if they like your idea and you like your idea, using the resources at Cornell for entrepreneurship and beyond.
I want to make sure that Mercy, Bo, or Wei Ching, if you have anything you want to add, or just general comments about your experience here thus far as students in the program, feel free. And if not, that's fine too.
Okay, hi, I'm Wei Qing, and then I feel like, cause I'm in like engineering background before I came into this project, and I feel like physical interaction is kind of like a class, but makes you more explore about like design, cause like, it is like our professor will push us to think more about what topics you are going to make and what is the best solution to this topic, and which I feel like it's really interesting when you're like, because I feel like after this class, I can like, it makes me easily to think more about some creative and interesting idea. Yeah, so I think it's like yeah, it's a fun part.
I just want to add a very simple thing, because the background is not the HCI, I'm just the architecture. And before I come to here, I never know about the coding things and the HCI things. So if you know the background of this, don't afraid of that. Because the professor can teach you step by step, and it's very kind of things.
Just to add about little about my experience also, one thing that I appreciate about Design Tech program is the collaboration spirit that they foster among students. I mean, it opens up the possibility of what you could do, of what you could produce. And that's like the core thing I've been able to like bring out from the program, because it teaches someone how and when to lead, when to follow, or when to side lead, depending on the project you're working on. And that's really great experience I've accumulated so far. Yeah.
One last question before we close.
I wanted to ask about the orientation experience, just to kind of go off like any students that lack certain knowledge in certain fields. I understand that contrary to a lot of schools, the design tech program has like a 2-week orientation to kind of bring everyone up to speed. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about what you guys cover during that time and what we can expect.
Yeah. So the 2-week orientation is new, based on tweaks that we're making, learning from the first year of the program, and especially in the first semester, recognizing that, you know, given that the students are coming from such diverse backgrounds, having that 2 weeks of boot camp, like just immersed into developing your digital dexterity, exposing you to new tools and methods and ways of thinking, that'll, we think and we know will set you up to really hit the ground running. So last year it was 1 week, and it was not as immersive or comprehensive. We had a series of workshops with our IIT team, for example. This round for your class will be 2 weeks, and it will be co-taught by design tech faculty, and it will be intense and fun. And you'll come out of it with a lot of skills to prepare you for the start of the semester. And that came out of reflection and talking with the students, both the students in the studio, our student representative, Kobe, and also talking amongst the studio team, which includes Laura, Marina, Lawson, and myself. Okay, I think with that, we will close the morning session. As I mentioned, this has been recorded, so we will put it online and send everyone the link for those that weren't able to join us for the whole time. But I want to thank everyone, all of our admitted students who have joined us online and also here in person. And thank you to all of our current students for joining us, and our amazing faculty, and also a huge thanks to Artur Alegre and Rebecca Gibbons, our program coordinator and department manager, for all of your support and coordination in making this event happen. So, thank you. So let's, we'll take a 5-minute break for our admitted students that are here in person, and we'll just meet here, and then I'm going to take you guys on a tour of the facilities. And then everyone else, please, if you have the time, join us for lunch at 1 p.m. We'll have catered lunch here, so we'll see you then.